Hello and welcome to the PublishU podcast, where we explore the real-life stories of authors from around the world. Today, we are talking to Bryan from the southwest of England, who is talking about his book, The Life of Bryan. Welcome, Bryan.
Oh, good to be here. Yep.
It's great. And whereabouts in the southwest are you? Remind me.
We're in a little village called Craft Hall. It's in the southeast corner of Cornwall.
Wow. And
yeah, we came from a big city called Birmingham down to this little village with about 300 people in it.
Yeah, well, wonderful. And Cornwall's renowned for its surfing, Bryan, isn't it? Do you surf, or do you just encourage the children and grandchildren?
We are encouraging the grandchildren, particularly in that area. Yeah.
Wonderful, that's great. So, Bryan, tell me just what have you done professionally in your life? What's your vocation been?
All right. Originally, I became an income tax inspector.
Oh my goodness!
In
I'm paid up, Bryan. I'm paid up.
Well, I was an investigating tax inspector as well, so you might even be even more prepared than you think you are.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that was, but as a lad of 12, I became a Christian, and in my bedroom, when I committed my life to the Lord, I felt very clearly that he got me by the scruff of the neck and said, "I've got you for a purpose." And so I had a higher calling than taking money off people with their HMRC, and I then became a leader in a new house church in Solihull, where we lived.
Wonderful.
And I also have got, as my book says, a man on a mission. I am involved in a lot of Christian events and things.
Yeah.
And Supply Line is one which goes in. It's gone into Nigeria for 36 years now.
Wonderful.
And so
Wonderful.
I've been CEO of that.
Yeah.
Company.
Bryan, along the way, I think you got married, didn't you? Who's the lucky lady?
Yes. Well.
And a heart for revival.
Oh, you. Yes. Yes. The lucky lady was a young lady of 15 when I first met her, when I was the leader of the youth group in this church, this new church. And yes, and she became my wife many years later.
Does she have a name, Bryan?
Yes, yes. Her name is Jenny. She's the best wife I've ever had. I've only had one.
And how long have you guys been married?
Coming up next March, it will be 58 years.
Wow, amazing, really. And you've got a few children and a few more grandchildren. How many have you got?
Right, we've got 3 children. Eldest daughter is Amanda, who is a world traveller. Visited her 56th nation on her in her work.
Wonderful. And
then,
how many grandchildren have they produced for you, Bryan?
She hasn't got any.
She hasn't got any. She was a career girl, and she decided not to get married until.
Yeah, we don't need to go into the detail, Bryan.
Okay.
How many grandchildren have you got?
How many grandchildren? 6.
We lost one.
Oh yes, sadly we lost one in a
You've got a little prompt in the background there, Bryan. Is
yes,
Jenny
I have.
you out in this interview?
Yes. Okay. Well, I remember on one occasion when we were on the course, you politely asked her to leave the room.
Very politely. So Bryan, on the subject of the Writing My Book course, well, firstly, what made you decide to write a book?
Okay. Well, over many, many years, friends, family have said, we hear your preaching and we hear the stories that you tell. If you don't write those down, they will die with you. And I had great encouragement from a number of people to write the book. But I'm a storyteller, but I'm not a writer. I don't consider myself a writer.
Yeah.
So last November, I was at a City Transformation Conference in Plymouth, and who should be speaking but Matt Bird.
Ah, yes, I remember very well.
And then he took advantage of our break by saying, look, I've got a seminar. It's entitled, Have You Got a Book in You? And that will be during the break. I went into that, and you explained all you were able to do. It took me a few weeks, even months, to just really consider whether I was going to do it through PublishU. And I made the big decision, and this is why I'm here.
Wonderful. And Bryan, about the Writing My Book course, what is it that helped you most about the course?
I think your teaching and your really, it was, I think when I read one of the sessions, which was How Do You Eat an Elephant? I thought, well, I wouldn't have expected that in my writing career. But you really made it alive. It was great. It was the way you took it forward from step to step. And yes, we did meet an elephant little by little, and we got from not thinking really that we are writers. This is speaking for myself. To the point where we had a book published within, what, 6 months, 7 months probably.
Amazing.
So
wrote and published your book within 6 or 7 months. That's wonderful, Bryan.
Yeah, and it was accessible. What you were saying, it was inventive. It was accessible. We were able to pick it up and follow it.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, that's great to hear, Bryan. So coming on to your book, tell us, you've called it The Life of Bryan. We're not going to make any links or associations, Bryan with a Y. But tell us, is your story comical? Is it profound? Is it sad? Tell us about what you've written, Bryan.
It's about my journey from a lad, 7 children, the piggy in the middle of 7 children, working class family, and my education at a public school, which I got a scholarship to when I was 11, and then having to move on to another school, and then really it's about my life of faith, really. That's the best way I can describe it. As I said, when I was 12, I had that sense of the call of God on me, and so I am what I am doing here in this book is taking people on a journey with me, first of all chronologically, but latterly with particular areas where I was fulfilling what I felt was God's call on my life. So it's well, I don't think I can describe it as anything other than following me in that life of faith.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Bryan, I remember when you said to me, Matt, how shall I get this to my family? And I suggested that you went to a local printer and ran off 50 copies, because you really only wrote it for your children, grandchildren, and a few other family members. And you came back to me and said, well, I've talked to my family, Matt, and actually I want to publish it properly. Tell us a little bit more about that. What did your family say to you?
Well, I was reminded more by a friend of mine who has written 2 books. He was with me in that house church as one of the elders, and his experience of trying to do it on his own was very difficult, and he therefore went through a publishing house, and he recommended to me that I went through a publishing house. Yeah. And that's why it was done through PublishU, because you had prepared the way.
Absolutely. We made it easy for you, Bryan. And tell us what you've got 3 children, 6 grandchildren. What do they think that dad and granddad, do they call you granddad, your grandchildren, or grandpa?
They, I don't know what they call me. What
Okay, grandpa. What
But-
do they think that grandpa has become an author? I mean, this is quite significant for them.
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise to some of them because they knew that over the years I repeatedly said, you know, I've got a, I don't know how to go about writing a book, but they were thrilled when I went about it. And I can tell you from my eldest daughter, who did an endorsement for this book, which really just did succinctly put it into 2 sentences, I think.
Yeah, she did. She did it beautifully, Bryan. Really, really good.
Have you got access to that? Because that does give the feel.
Yeah, we'll be pumping out your book and promoting your book, Bryan. So everybody will read what your daughter, Amanda, wasn't it, had to say.
Yeah.
So let's come on, Bryan. What is your highest hope for the book?
Well, I think my intention for the book is this is a legacy which I'm leaving for my family and friends. If it goes to a wider audience, so be it. But mainly, it's really for my family and friends to see what I've been about in my life and hopefully learning some lessons from it for them as they pursue their careers and as they pursue maybe that walk of faith again.
Amazing. So if anybody's listening to this interview, which they will be, Bryan, what's your encouragement to them if they feel they've got a book in them? What would you say to them?
I would say get in touch with Matt Bird. I really would, because it's been such a, I mean, it was such a helpful process that we went through, and you know, and I felt more assured that I could do it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that assurance which is going to be, for anybody who is listening who wants to write a book through PublishU, it's that reassurance. And even after the manuscript is submitted, there is a pathway that is very clearly shown what to do at each stage.
Oh, well, wonderful, Bryan. Thank you for the promotion. And thank you, Bryan, for being with us today. And thank you all for listening to the PublishU podcast featuring the real life stories of authors from around the world. If you are interested in becoming an author like Bryan, please do visit our website, www.publishu.com. That's publishu.com. And if you've enjoyed this broadcast, make sure you subscribe for more. Thank you and goodbye for now.